G-Day week is here. Football is back. There's going to be football between the brand new hedges at Sanford Stadium this weekend. I know I'm excited. I know you're excited. But I know that no one is more excited than Kirby Smart and his Georgia Bulldogs because they've been putting in the work. Nobody's really gotten to have a good look at what they've been doing so far. But even under that cloak of secrecy, there have been a few things that have bubbled to the top. A few things have leaked out, a few names that we need to discuss. And I told you before spring practice started that this would not be your location if you wanted practice by practice breakdowns, if you wanted scrimmage insider notes. That was not the way we were going to approach spring practice. We were certainly talking about it. We've been talking about it. But there are other places to get that. No, what we're talking about are the things that maybe we're not usually thinking about as fans. But since G-Day is here, almost, I do think we are going to spend some time tonight talking about the things that have managed to break through that cloak of secrecy. I know Kirby likes to play it close to the vest, but as I talked about last week, sometimes he can't even contain his own excitement about the team that he has and the roster that's coming together for 2024. So that's what we're going to talk about this week. We're going to talk about the names, the players that are getting everybody's attention and that have a real chance to make an impact for the Georgia Bulldogs here in 2024 on this episode of How About That Dogs Cast. Now, I've already gotten into it, but here we are. G-Day is here. It's time to pick a side, as the university tells us, red or black. I always just pick both. I just want to see everybody come through the event healthy. I want to see a little flash here or there. Put my eyes on the new players, see who actually shows up, because this is going to be the opportunity for the breakout players to make an appearance, as well as the breakthrough players. The players that we know, we've seen them before. We know that they are contributors to the team, but maybe they just haven't had the opportunity yet to break through on a consistent basis. And then this is also our first opportunity to see the bright new stars, all those names that we hear about all year long when it comes to recruiting. And then once you get around to signing day, we all celebrate who chooses to become a Georgia Bulldog and welcome them into the fold. This is our first chance to see those players actually put their foot in the dirt and play a little football. It's pretty exciting. We're going to get into that and much more here on this edition of How About That Dogs Cast. But before we do that, a word from our sponsors. Y'all know we talk about champions, and that's why I want to tell you about the Premier difference with a Premier Club membership from Premier Heating and Air. Regardless of the changes that come with the seasons, winter, spring, summer, or football, some things will never change. I'm going to be comfortable in my own home, and the comfort and well-being of my family will always be my top priority. If you feel the same way, choosing Premier Heating and Air is the play to take care of all of your family's needs when it comes to keeping you cool and comfortable in your home or business. Whether you're looking to keep your current HVAC system running at peak performance, you need to replace an aging system, or you're adding on to your home and need to upgrade to a larger heating and air system, which is what I did a few years back when we built an addition onto our home, Premier Heating and Air has got you covered. Be sure to check out their Premier Club membership offer to keep your home heating and cooling systems running at peak performance and avoid costly repairs in the future. Just click the link in the description below today to get started and give yourself the gift of time, freedom, and peace of mind to focus on the most important things in your life. The choice is clear, y'all. You've just got to experience Premier. Now, as I pointed out last week, the national media is sort of putting the word out there, in case you didn't know, in case you've been living under a rock, that the University of Georgia currently, today, has the top program in college football. And Kirby Smart, as the leader of that program, has ascended to the role of the top head coach in college football. There's no surprise there. Again, we talked about that last week. But still, it's always good to point it out when you see it in the national media, because the national media is not the same as your local media. The guys who are beat writers, the guys who are covering the team every day, they, even if it's not true, can often be colored by the perception that they are a homer, or that they are only telling one side of the story, or that they are somehow trying to protect a program. Take my word for it. The people here covering the Georgia Bulldogs who live in and around Athens, Georgia, are none of those things, and they do none of those things. It's always convenient for opposing fan bases to throw rocks or sort of cherry pick information and say one of the beat writers is saying that just because he's a beat writer and he wants to stay in the good graces. There are no good graces. Not with Kirby Smart. That's just not a game he plays. He could have known you for 30 years and he'll still pull you on the carpet, call you out right in the middle of a live press conference. That's just how he gets down. That is simply the relationship there. There are professionals, journalists who sit in those chairs and do the best job they can do to cover the University of Georgia for us, the fans. I, for one, appreciate it. Now, when the national media comes in and says this program or this coach or this player is something special, whether it's warranted or not, in your judgment as a fan, it brings a little extra spotlight. And as I pointed out last week, ESPN and Chris Lowe stepped right up to the plate and made a declaration that Kirby is unquestionably the top coach in college football, and his program is the top program. If you needed anything else to sort of solidify that opinion for you, you can always, go back and look at some of my past podcasts. I've been talking about it for months. I've been making the argument point by point, fact by fact, that when you stack it up, what's going on at the University of Georgia under Kirby should be applauded. They have done the things necessary to put themselves not only in the conversation, but as the clear and definitive answer when you're talking about the question of the top program in the country today. Not the top team, that's a different discussion, but the top program. With all that said, though, if you need it even more convincing, our buddy Josh Pate stepped up to the plate this week and let it be known how he feels about the University of Georgia and Kirby Smart. I've been telling y'all for months that Georgia is the top program in the land and that Kirby Smart is running the show in college football. But hey, what do I know? I'm not sure if Josh Pate watches my little show. I mean, we're just over here doing our thing. Who knows? Maybe he does.
The number one program in college football right now is the University of Georgia. 42-3 with 2 titles over the last 3 seasons. I think it's the top coaching staff, pound for pound, in college football right now. Kirby Smart, I would power rate as the number 1 head coach in college football right now. It's the second layer, though. It's the names you don't even know. The assistants, they're strong. Beneath the top layer, they're strong. When it comes to roster, we would just call that depth. It's also probably the most intense environment to work in or play in college football, and it yields results like you've seen. Georgia number 1, Alabama number 2.
Go Dogs! There you have it. I don't know who that dude was that was hanging out with Josh right there in that video, but he seems to know what he's talking about. You may have seen that on my social media this week. I thought Josh nailed it, but I did have to question the timing in some way, because the evidence has been there for a while that Georgia was in this position. It is technically the offseason, even though we talk about football year-round here on this channel, as does Josh. He does a fine job over at Late Kick. But it is technically the offseason. And when you're in the middle of the offseason, and especially when you start to round the bend and look ahead to the season with a more serious perspective, then you start to think about making lists of things. And one of those things that you make a list of is head coaches and programs and where they all stack up. And Josh did everybody a service. Because he's not out there just saying Georgia is number one because he wants to carry Georgia's flag. He went on to list several other programs, Ohio State, Michigan, right there in the conversation. Of course, he had Alabama right there. But if you're looking at it factually, that's the state of play right now. And I say all that just to say this. Kirby is in that position because of what he's built at Georgia. And when I say it that way, what I'm really trying to say is that Kirby's not building for tomorrow. He's not building for this week, right? Not this season. From the very beginning, he's had a long range point of view when it came to building this program, what it needed to look like year over year over year to sustain success. You can see in this photo here that the guy who's going to be calling the shots for the Dogs this year at quarterback, Carson Beck, is going to be a second-year starter after only losing one game in his first year as the play caller at the University of Georgia. Not play caller, but the quarterback at the University of Georgia. He seems, based on everything that has come out of all of the off-season workouts and spring practice, to be a different sort of player in year two. Much more comfortable. It's not like he didn't already know where to go with the ball. Now he's just ironing out the wrinkles. He's sort of sprinkling the fairy dust on these new receivers that he has to play with, trying to figure out exactly who is going to be his go-to guy. And that sort of spins us forward because Kirby has the program in position to sustain success. So if you didn't know anything else about what was going on at the University of Georgia this year at spring practice, all you would need to know is, A, did anybody get hurt? Did they have anybody, get lost to injury? That's the first thing that could change any team's season. And then secondarily, who is going to show up that maybe we don't really know yet? That's what makes it exciting because you know that the program's on such good footing that they're going to be a good team. The only question is how good and exactly who should I look for? So we know Kirby has Carson Beck. He's right there. You see him in the photo. We know that the quarterback position is in good hands, and we expect Carson to come out and have a really good 2024. But one of the names this year who's going to appear twice in our conversation this evening is Dylan Bell. Because Bell has been one of those guys that we've seen him play. We know he's good. Shoot, I even sat right here and told you that heading into this year, I would put Dylan Bell as wide receiver 1 for Carson Beck, based on his productivity last year, based on his toughness that he showed on the field and his playmaking ability, and based on the fact that of all of the wide receivers there's only maybe one other wide receiver that has had the opportunity to work with Carson Beck as much as Dylan Bell has. So I've already told you that I think Dylan Bell should get the ball this year, and I think he will be a playmaker for Georgia. But the reason he straddles this line between breakthrough and breakout players is because he was a running back in high school. He's really only in his third season as a wide receiver. And yet we've already seen what he can do, and he may have already worked himself into the position as the number one target for the number one returning quarterback on what very well could be the number one team heading into the 2024 college football season. If this dude is still improving, think about what that's going to mean not only for him, but for Georgia. There's a lot of good right there. Those are the kind of possibilities that really get you excited if you're a Georgia Bulldog fan. And the reason that I can just talk about him so glowingly is because his name is one of those names that has just, without looking for it, without directly being asked, Kirby Smart has mentioned Dylan Bell's name as a guy that has taken ownership in the receiver room. He has become the leader of that room. He is the guy that has stepped into the role of someone like a Ladd McConkey or like even a Brock Bowers in the way he is going about practice. The amount of effort, the amount of accountability that he's bringing onto the practice field every day has been something that the coaches have been talking about all spring. And what's more than that, he's not only talking the talk, he's walking the walk. His name is among those names that when you hear about this happened at practice or this happened in a scrimmage, one of the names that's being rattled off in a list of playmakers is Dillon Bell. So if anybody is right on schedule to make an impact bigger than we've seen so far in 2024, it is 86, Dillon Bell. They're going to find ways to get him the football this year. And it is going to be fun watching how exactly they figure out how to do that. Now, one of the other names that keeps popping up this year in spring practice is Dom Lovett. Now, Dominic Lovett is another one of those names that sort of crosses both breakthrough and breakout territory because he played a lot in 2023. And when Brock Bowers went down and Ladd McConkey was also out of the lineup, the guy that picked up that slack, who started seeing the ball more, Dom Lovett. And all he did was average 6 to 8 catches a game and 60 to 70 yards every time he stepped on the football field. Then, of course, when Brock comes back, he becomes target 1. McConkey comes back, he becomes target 2, or at least 1A. And Dom was still there doing work, having a productive season. If he moves himself into, if not the primary target, a primary secondary target in the slot for Georgia, a guy who would have now been in the league for 3 seasons and his second season in a new offense with a quarterback that likes to throw the ball over the middle and is extremely accurate, it is not at all a stretch of the imagination to think that Dominic Lovett is going to step up and have a season for Georgia this year that is going to put him back in the conversation for all SEC honors by the time the year is over. Dominic Lovett, not only has he already shown us what he can do, is a name that just keeps popping up and a name that I think we have to respect and look for heading into this season. Nobody has seemingly had a more rapid mention of his name this year more often than Arian Smith. I know. If you're a Georgia fan, Arian Smith is a guy that you've been waiting on for 4 seasons. The problem with that was that for the first 3 seasons, the kid couldn't stay healthy. And then last year, he actually does have a fairly healthy regular season. But because of the way the thing went early and the different personnel that was having to be played and the different roles they were being asked to play, Arian had some bad luck. He dropped some balls early and his confidence completely fell through the floor. So yet again, as a Georgia fan, you're like, where's this dude? If we can have him make plays for us, it's going to literally change our offense. We saw other guys step into his role last year. We saw Ra Thomas go down the field, catch some big balls over the top. Those balls would have originally been scheduled for a guy like Arian Smith. But this year's different. Now that he is one of the elder members in that wide receiver group, and the coaches are looking at him and saying, guess what? You're healthy. And you've put in your time. They are pouring into this young man. They are focusing on him in a way that they haven't in the past. For a couple of reasons. One, they know it's important to have what he brings to an offense be effective in Georgia's offense this year. The second reason is he's a guy that could have left. Smith very easily could have jumped into the transfer portal and said, I am just going to go somewhere where I can be on the field all the time. It's about at bats. I just want more opportunities to catch the football and show what I can do. But that's not what he did. He came back because he's committed to the University of Georgia and wants to succeed here. Everything that I have heard about Arian Smith this spring has been positive, from his work ethic to his leadership to his production on the field, at practice, and in scrimmages. Arian Smith seems poised to have a breakout season for the Dogs here in 2024. Now, does that mean he's suddenly going to jump and become their leading receiver in terms of catches or yards? No, it doesn't. But I think it's completely fair to look at what Arian Smith can do and say he's going to be a guy that's on the field running more than just the 9 route up the sideline, running more than just the deep post. And they are going to try to help him round his game into something that resembles a bigger route tree and a more complete wide receiver. This is a year where Arian has shown enough to show everybody that he can do it. This is the year that he needs to do it, both for the team and for himself, because as a fifth-year player, if he's going to have any kind of shot to play at the next level, he's going to have to start showing it on the field. And this is the year that could happen. I, for one, am cheering for the guy. I hope he stays healthy. I hope he sees the ball early and often. And I hope that he can make the kind of plays that we all know he's capable of making. If he doesn't make the catch pictured here against Ohio State in that Peach Bowl back in 2022, Georgia doesn't win that game. But the minute he shook his defender, sent him scrambling across the ground because he twisted his feet up so bad, and then raced into the end zone wide open and untouched, from the minute that play happened, you knew Georgia was going to win the game. As a Georgia fan, you just had a feeling. I did. I'm like, yep, Ohio State's in trouble. Here comes Georgia. Here comes Stetson Bennett. And sure enough, they got the job done. And it culminated with their second consecutive national championship. So Arian has been in big moments. He's made big plays. Just count us among those who are cheering the young man on and hoping that all of that stretches out over the course of the season for him and the Dogs this year. Which brings us back to Dom Lovett. As I mentioned, we know that he has done good things in a Georgia uniform in the past. We know that he is an all-conference caliber player. But again, the thing that's different about him this year, as I mentioned, Dylan Bell is taking a leadership role in that offense. So is Dom Lovett. Dom Lovett, they have thrown around the word dominant in practice this year when talking about Dominic Lovett. Because again, think about the position he plays. He's a slot guy, which gives you, in most cases, the advantage when you have a really good player there. A matchup advantage, the advantage of the offense, the way you can scheme those dudes open. Everything is on the table for Dom to have a great season. So is the fact that he is being described as dominant in spring practice because it's his second year in the system and he's just that much more comfortable? Is it because he's more physically ready to do everything he's being asked to do at the University of Georgia? Is it because there are some young DBs back there who are having to learn trial by fire against a guy that is an all-conference performer? It's probably some combination of all of those things. But the bottom line is, when people are talking about players having big springs that are poised for a breakout here in 2024, the name that absolutely gets mentioned every time is Dominic Lovett. So I know I am very excited to see what this young man can do for the Dogs this year. Because when I think about the slot receivers, think about the best slot receivers you've ever watched. They're shifty and in short spaces. They have great quickness and burst to get in and out of cuts. And they have really good hands and are very dependable. I see all of those things when I look at Lovett, and he does have the ability to get over the top and take the ball deep when he's given an opportunity to do so. This year could be a big year for number 6. So with Dylan Bell and Dominic Lovett, and Ra Thomas is in his second year at wide receiver at the University of Georgia, plus a bunch of other names that we are already familiar with, there are going to be plenty of opportunity for Carson Beck to find somebody that's got a good matchup and get the ball to them here in 2024. But we're not done. I know it sounds like I'm only talking about wide receivers. I don't mean to. But that is the space that Georgia did the most work this offseason via the transfer portal. Another name, a name that I haven't really talked about at all up until this point on the podcast, is Colby Young, number 9, pictured here. When people talk about him and the way he has shown himself so far in practices and the scrimmages at the University of Georgia, they call this dude like a transformer, like there's somebody inside driving the machine because of the way he can move his body. The combination of size and speed that he has. Can you imagine for a second? Just let your mind sort of wander here. You might have, say, a set where you have Anthony Evans and Dylan Bell on the outside. And then you have Dominic Lovett in the slot. And then on the other side, so does it look like we're back? I think I've been able to regain my stream and we are live. So apologies, everyone, for that disruption in service. Sitting here rolling right along, having a wonderful show. And what do you know? Bang. Mother Nature steps in and lets us know that we're not in control. But that's okay. Live happens live. And that's why we do this show live, is because you never quite know exactly what's going to happen. I was talking to somebody just the other day saying, I really enjoy doing the live broadcast because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like things just go better when it's live. And wouldn't you know it, we're testing that theory here tonight. So thanks for sticking it out with me. I hope you're still here. Thanks for hanging in there. Live happens live. So back to where we were. Colby Young. We've already talked about Dom Lovett and Dylan Bell, and one of the other wide receivers that we can't talk about if we're talking about spring practice and failed to mention is Colby Young, the transfer from the University of Miami. Now, when people talk about Colby Young, they say that his mixture of speed, power, just sheer physicality is the thing that's going to make him a problem for the Dogs here in 2024. And we've already seen it show up based on reports from the scrimmages. The first week he was out there, the word was Colby's trying to get his feet under him. He looks like he's going to be a good player. He just doesn't know what to do right now. Fair. But I was amazed with how quickly that narrative shifted from he's still trying to sort of figure it out to he's a guy that's making plays for us right now. That's the sort of thing that leads me to believe he could get on the field and be productive for the Dogs earlier in the season rather than later. The thing about the way Kirby Smart handles the transfer portal in general, but especially at the wide receiver position, is he wants guys that he knows are going to be able to come in and play immediately. Barring injury or something like that that's out of their control, they're going to be able to get on the field and help the Dogs in some way. And Colby Young seems to be a guy that's going to do that. So I guess maybe he could be considered a breakout player depending on how his statistical season goes. But at the very minimum, he could be a guy that would be a breakthrough player because we already know he can get the job done. Allow yourself to think for just a second. You've got Dylan Bell split out wide on one side, and then you've got Arian Smith on the other. In the slot, you have Dominic Lovett. And then we've decided to go 4 wide and put Colby in a bunch to the other side. He's over there with Dylan Bell, but they're in a tight bunch set or whatever makes you happy. You have to now worry about Dylan Bell at every level of the defense. You certainly have to worry about Arian Smith taking the top off your defense. You have to worry about Dom Lovett working the middle in that slot. And then who's left? That monster, based on what everybody says, Colby Young, who can run the 15 to 20 yard intermediate routes on digs, posts, has the speed to go down the field if you want to go over the top with him. Wherever you send him, though, he's going to be a threat and most likely a mismatch. So when Carson Beck drops back to throw the football, he's got all 4 of those options. Maybe you slip out a running back or a tight end into the pattern as well. Certainly, you're putting pressure across that defense at every level, and you would expect that one of those guys is going to be able to win for you if you're Carson Beck. I like our chances if that's the case. Again, everything we've heard about Colby so far is extremely positive. Obviously, there's a learning curve when you come to a new program. But again, based on what we've heard, and it's not just having to dig through the practice reports to find these guys. The only guys I'm talking about here tonight are guys that are just popping off the page. Based on that sort of feedback so far, it looks like Colby Young is going to be a guy that's absolutely going to be a playmaker for the Dogs this year. Who's going to have big catches for the Dogs this year, and who is expecting to be a difference maker for Georgia this year. And if you are an offensive-minded guy, shoot, even if you're a defensive-minded guy like myself, you love to hear that. You just love to hear it. You cannot have enough good weapons. But moving on, up to this point, we've only discussed wide receivers. And that just doesn't feel right to me as a defensive guy. I'm not like anti-offense in any way, but I just have an affinity for what happens on the defensive side of the ball. And notice when we look at the guys that I've thrown up here in this group picture, this montage, we're talking about Dylan Bell, again, who is going above and beyond what he's done in the past, who's still growing and maturing and learning in the role of wide receiver. So I listed him here among guys who could be breakthrough players, guys that we have seen play, but this year is the year that they make that jump. The guy that I really want to spend the most time on here is Damon Wilson, back on the defensive side of the ball. We saw Damon play last year, but he was a specialist. He was, I don't want to say he was undersized, but he was not the kind of guy that you were going to have out there on first and second down when you had other options to play the end position or set the edge in the run game. That's not what Damon's job was as a freshman. He was a targeted missile sent after the quarterback to create havoc in pass rushing situations. This year, Kirby Smart stepped to the podium and said, Damon is right where he should be. He's not ahead, he's not behind, but he's doing everything that he should be doing, and he's on the same path that guys like Trayvon Walker were on in the past, or guys like Channing Tindall. Now, he even threw Nolan Smith in that group. Now, of course, as fans, we're like, whoa, that's such a teaser. That means that Damon is about to have some huge year. That's not what Kirby said. But what he did say is that Damon has done the work in the offseason through his nutrition and through his work in the weight room and training to put his body in a place where he can now play more on first and second down, become a more consistent player on first and second down. And when you are a player like Damon Wilson with God-given pass rushing abilities, God-giving speed and burst, and the ability to bend your body and turn the corner and get after the quarterback, the more you are on the field, the better. Because there is no rule in football that says you can only throw the ball on third down. So if Damon has worked himself into position to be on the field more and the coaches can trust him on first and second down, then there is a very real chance that you're going to see him make more of those plays behind the line of scrimmage on 1st and 2nd down, because that's what he's good at. Damon is one of those guys that, on one hand, I expect really big things from this year. I've talked about him on this podcast before, the way he's worked in the offseason. I think he's ready to break through. The potential is there, though, if everything goes exactly the right way, for him to not only break through, but to break out and end up with 8 sacks or 10 sacks or something like that this year. Now, again, that's me speaking as a fan. That is not what the coaches are calling for with Damon, and you've never heard Damon say anything like that. In fact, he said everything exactly the opposite. He has said, I don't want to put numbers on anything. I want to come out and get better every day. I want to be better at every little part of my game. I want to be more dependable. I want to be what my defense needs me to be so that we can be dominant, because that's his personal expectation for not only himself, but for the unit. So I feel really good about Damon Wilson. If he stays healthy, I think he really could have a breakthrough season. And if everything goes really well, he could be a breakout guy that changes the trajectory of Georgia's season this year. He could be that good. He's not the only one, but he's the one that I keep hearing people talk about during spring practice. So I'm definitely going to be looking at 35 as we make our way into G-Day this weekend. Now, we're near the end, but we're not quite done yet, because how could I possibly talk about seeing new faces in new places? I mentioned them off the top. I'll mention them again now, unless I'm talking about the 5-star additions that Georgia added to their team, specifically on the defensive side of the ball here in 2024. You didn't really think I was going to talk about getting to see new players and not mention guys like Ellis Robinson III, the number 1 cornerback out of this last year's class, or maybe KJ Bolden, the number 1 ranked safety out of this last year's class. I don't even have Justin Williams on the screen here for those of you watching along on YouTube, but he is another guy that is splashing simply because of his athletic ability, because he had earned that rating as a 5-star. These guys are drawing comparisons to some of the greatest Georgia Bulldogs to ever do it. Word came out of practice a few days ago that Ellis Robinson was making Champ Bailey-like plays out at practice. That KJ Bolden looks explosive on the field in scrimmages, so much so that he's worked himself into the rotation with Anthony Evans, who we already know is an explosive kick returner, as a kickoff returner for the Dogs. You have to love that if you're a Georgia Bulldog fan. Why do you go recruit these top flight players if you are not going to give them every opportunity to make an impact on your team immediately? Kirby Smart has been on record for years saying age is not a factor. If you are good enough, you are old enough. And these dudes, based on what's coming out of practice, are good enough. Now, I said some things about Ellis back around signing day where I said I never went so far as to say he's going to be a starter for Georgia at cornerback as a true freshman. With that said, I do believe that the further you are away from the football, the easier it is to get on the field as a true freshman. And Robinson has the physical ability and size and football IQ, based on what we've heard, to certainly be pushing the guys that are starting for Georgia this year at corner and possibly earning a few reps. That's the word that's coming out of Athens. That is extremely exciting if you were a Georgia Bulldog. KJ Bolden, again, he looks great as a safety. But from what I've heard, the way he really pops, the way he makes you pay attention, is when the ball comes his way. So how do you get the ball into a playmaker's hands? You put him on special teams. These are guys that Coach Kirby Smart and the rest of that coaching staff are working on every day. Because the fact of the matter is, thanks to the transfer portal and NIL, the advantage that Georgia had in, say, 19, 20, certainly 21, of having better depth than everybody else in the country, those days may be gone forever. Because of NIL and transfer portal, you just don't have the ability to stockpile players the way that we've seen in the last few seasons. The fact is, you're going to have younger guys on your two deep. And when those younger guys are talented, you have to coach them up and get them ready to go because you know they're going to have to play. So whether you're talking about corner or safety or defensive line, even if you have the right body type, you are going to have true freshmen who are going to be your third string guys that are going to rotate in and get maybe 10 snaps a game. Think back to last year. Jordan Hall in the game early in the season as a rotational player. You look this year and you're like, who are those guys? I've just mentioned 3 of them. Ellis Robinson III, KJ Bolden, potentially Justin Williams even. If you look at the defensive line, maybe Joseph Jonah Ajanye could be a guy based on just his physical size and his talent, albeit raw. He might be good enough to get on the field for the Dogs here as a true freshman. All that's going to sort itself out as we get into fall camp. But the bottom line is depth is not what it used to be, and it's that way for everybody. So if you're going to have to play younger players, then you better go get good ones. It's a statement like that that makes you really appreciate Coach Smart's approach to building his program, where he is going to get the best high school recruits possible, bring them in, coach them up the Georgia way, instill the culture, the standard of what's expected from a Georgia Bulldog player under Kirby Smart. Get that done early. And then coach them up. Tell them to go play like their hair's on fire. We know you're not going to be perfect, but we brought you here because we think you're a player. And we need you to play. Again, that's not just a Georgia thing. That's across the country. So when a school like Georgia goes out on the recruiting trail and says, hey, come on down, we need you to play, they can say it and mean it, and they can just point to the tape. Freshman, sophomore, freshman, getting meaningful reps in meaningful games for the number 1 team in the country. There is no sales pitch better than that. So there are names and faces all across this Georgia roster this year in spring practice that have just refused to let themselves be overtaken by it all, to be overwhelmed. They wanted to show up, they wanted to battle, and they wanted to prove that they belong. That's a good thing if you're a Georgia Bulldog fan. It makes you feel good about the season because it lets you know that as much change and as much churn as there is in college football today, there are things you can count on, and that is that the University of Georgia is going to have top-tier players. They're going to be coached by the best coaching staff in the country, and when put in the right place, they are going to make plays. That's what we've seen under Kirby Smart so far. That's what we are hearing from spring practice this year as we head into G-Day. And that is what I think we can comfortably expect to see moving forward under Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs. So G-Day's coming. Pick a side, red or black. For those of you that are going to go to the game, I talked about this earlier this spring. The game is great. Football and watching our dogs play between the hedges is an experience that can literally make memories for a lifetime. And that's what I want to encourage you to do. Because you just don't know how many opportunities you're going to have to do that with the people that you care about. So if you're heading to Athens this year, I hope the stadium is sun-splashed. I hope everything turns up red and black for you. And I hope you have one of the best days possible. Make memories that you will have forever with those people that you care about more than anyone else. Because one thing is certain about what's going to happen in Sanford Stadium on Saturday. Georgia is going to win. I feel like a winner every time I show up to this channel because of the people like you who choose to hang out with me for this broadcast every Wednesday and follow and support the podcast and the channel. It is because of you that I can say so proudly, we are on the march to 10,000 here on YouTube, a number I never thought I would see when I began this channel just a little over a year ago. We do video. We have a good time here on the channel, and our community is second to none. This year has shown me that. But what's more than that, if you prefer to watch us in the theater of the mind, don't forget that you can get the podcast on Apple Podcasts or anywhere that you get your podcasts and take us with you anywhere you go and listen anytime you want to. It's not that hard. Head on over there, follow the channel, leave us a rating if you want to. Always keep us with you because we've always got the dog content that you want. Following up on that, the newsletter is a wonderful way to know what's going on here with the Damn Beast Media and the How About That Dogs Cast. If you haven't done so already, jump into the description below, sign up for the newsletter. It'll take you 2 seconds. I promise you, you will never get anything from me that's not worthy of you opening that email. Finally, I want to say thank you so much to our channel members. If you don't know anything about channel membership, just know that you can become a channel member for as little as $1 a day right now. I'm sorry, $1 a month right now. It is because of the channel members that we were able to do the things we do here on the channel for you. And the bigger we can grow the community, the more support we get, the more content we can provide for you. And that is the ultimate goal. I want to say thank you to our channel members. I appreciate you being here, and I believe that you know that. Georgia is about to kick off G-Day in Sanford Stadium. New hedges and all. Along with those new hedges, you're going to see a lot of new faces, and some of them are going to be in new places. You're going to see touchdowns and tackles. You're going to see players do things that we've been longing to see them do for the past few months as we've been here in the aphelion of the college football offseason. So soak it in and enjoy it. Spring practice is like that extra slice of cake at the end of a big meal. You're looking forward to it. You know it's going to be good. Just don't eat it too fast. Soak it all in. Have a great time. If you go to the game and you have photos of you and your friends or family or shots of the game or anything else that you want to share with us, don't forget to tag us at A Damn Beast on all social media channels so we can join in with you. We'll be sure to give you a retweet or share it on the stories or whatever we can do to bring a smile to the face of Dog Nation out there. I'm excited for the 2024 season. Spring practice is the perfect place to talk about and look at what's coming down the road for 2024 when the regular season gets here. So be sure to take your opportunity to enjoy it. Because the cool thing about college football is that even though the names on the back of the jerseys change, the one thing that never changes is what's on the helmet. And we can all agree that it is always a good day to be a Georgia Bulldog and to cheer on the Georgia Bulldogs. Until next time, y'all take care of yourselves, take care of your friends, take care of your families, take care of each other. And go Dogs. All right, everybody. Thanks for staying in here with me. A little bit of overtime tonight is certainly owed to you for hanging in here with me. I can't believe we got knocked off the air right in the middle of the broadcast. That has never happened before. And if you hung around after the fact, and it looks like a lot of you did, thank you for that. We're going to stick around here for overtime and just chat about a few things. I want to take a few seconds to scroll back through the comments here, the chat, and make sure that I welcome everybody in appropriately. Rich, good to see you, buddy. I know I saw Harry in here. He was in here early. Welcome in, Harry. It's good to see you, partner. My good buddy Herb from the Herb and Raj podcast is in here. Lady Alpha's in here. Thank you so much. Wandering into enemy territory for a little while to check out the show. I hope we didn't disappoint. I don't know that I've ever caught you in the comments before, so I appreciate you being in here with me. That was awesome. Oh, I see Raj just popped in here too. Good evening, Raj. I hope the show did okay for you guys. Scotty, what's up, buddy? Thanks for supporting the channel as always. Big Dog 404 from Detroit City. Man, welcome in. I think you win the tag tonight for being the dog who is farthest flung from the classic city here as we head into G-Day this week. It's good to see you, man. Thanks for supporting the show and hanging out with us for a little while. Yeah, Raj, I see you, buddy. This is cool. Yeah, Herb, I see her. Lady Alpha's from Ohio, hated Ohio State. See, I wasn't gonna call her out like that. I wasn't gonna say who her school was. I was just gonna welcome her in. So again, guys, I'm excited about what this group has to offer this year for G-Day. I mean, it's odd. I mean, the only way you're going to be able to watch the game, it's not going to be on TV. You can see it on SEC Network Plus or ESPN Plus. And keep in mind that you don't have to have ESPN Plus as a subscription to watch the game on SEC Network Plus. If your cable provider has SEC Network, like if you can get it anyway, you should be able to sign in via your computer to SEC Network Plus using your cable provider information and watch the game that way. And of course, if you have SEC Network and potentially another channel or two, you might be able to catch the game on replay after the fact. So you're going to get to see the Dogs, even if you don't get to the Classic City to watch it live. And you'll get to see what's up. Oh, wait a minute. We are going to take a second here. I'm going to get this set up here because I want to make sure that I give this the appropriate amount of like excitement, everybody. Okay. So are you ready? Here we go. We're going to go with it. Our guy, Big Dog 404, lets us know that he just became a channel member. And that is amazing. Thank you so much for doing that. I saw earlier where you said you're a big fan of the channel. Well, I appreciate you taking time to be here with us, man, because these live shows are fun, and they're always more fun when you guys are in here with us, because I love to try to do the overtime portion here after the fact and just talk to everybody, see what's on everybody's minds, because it helps me know what sort of content you guys are looking for. And when we do things like memberships or super chats or super thanks or any of that stuff, you always get your comments on the screen and we talk about it, spend some time answering your questions one-on-one. So Big Dog, thank you so much for that, man. That's awesome. Currently, I mean, given this year, the way things went with the Michigan Wolverines and all that, and our past history with, yes, Lady Alpha's Ohio State Buckeyes, there's not a lot for me to be like, hoorah about when I think about what's going on up north. Smiles, all good college football talk here. But knowing that we've got a dog hanging out up there in Michigan who is wearing red and black and representing the conference and the team, man, that makes me super happy. That's awesome. I appreciate you being here. I hope you can make it every week. And I will do my best to make the membership worth your while. I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. And he's jumping on in here like, you know, again, just super happy that you decided to join the channel. That's awesome. I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Um, we see he's got it. He knows what's up. Always repping the G. See, if I'm not wearing something like this, if I'm not wearing one of my things, then yeah, I'm wearing Georgia stuff. The only exception is I mean, I do like I have two daughters, and so when I take my wife and daughters out for a what do we want to call it? Like a casual dressy evening out, then I'll find something else to go with. But generally speaking, you're going to find me rocking red and black. Besides, I think we all just look better in red and black, you know? Keep orange away. I don't do orange. So we can but the funny thing is my daughters do. I have one anyway who loves orange. So I try not to hate on it too much because I don't want to make her feel bad or anything, but she understands. She understands. She's all about Georgia too. So that's good stuff. So yeah, just talking about, again, just sort of retouching on what we were talking about in the show. And I appreciate you guys again hanging in here with me after the power cut. That's only happened like one other time, but this time, thankfully, because everything came back so quickly, we didn't lose the feed. Right, I didn't even have to start a new feed, so I was able to jump back in and sort of pick up where I left off. But yeah, like I was talking about this week, I mean, the national media, it's taken, from a Georgia fan's perspective, it's taken long enough for the national media to be like, yep, that's a good program consistently, and not sort of give it a backhanded, high five or whatever, like a backhanded compliment. Now when they look at Georgia, they're like, no, that's a quality program. They should be right there in the top 3 to 5 every year, and they should be competing for national championships. It took long enough, but they finally joined us. Like I said, Chris Lowe did it last week in a full write-up, a Q&A with Kirby. And then this week we had Josh Pate step up and take the position we've long held on this channel, that Georgia is today the best program in the country. This is a fluid thing. I think you need to give it 3 to 5 years of results on the field paired with coaching staff turnover and all those things to form the picture of a program. But I don't see any problem at all with saying that Georgia's the top program right now. He had Alabama at number 2. I don't have any problem with that either. Alabama is a really good program, very talented. It's now up to Kalen DeBoer to show us what they're going to be moving forward, but you don't just throw them away because they lost a coach. That's just not how it works. They lost a big deal coach. And, I do have thoughts on that and how I think some Alabama fans are fooling themselves. But I just told you, I think it's completely fine to put Alabama as the number 2 program based on results and things like that. Ohio State is right there in that discussion. I don't have Michigan there just simply because, yes, they had a good team, but I look at the 3 to 5 year window, right? So I don't think Michigan qualifies right there. I think a team like potentially even an Oregon could slide in ahead of a Michigan if we're ranking them. Texas could slide in ahead of a Michigan right there. So the program discussion is a different discussion than who has the best team. And we've had that a lot here. And we all, if you spend any time on the internet at all and choose to engage in such discussions, have had these debates with internet fans about who is what. And I swear, I don't know that there's anything more frustrating than trying to have a discussion with someone who cannot see the difference between a good team and a good program, or draw a distinction between what makes a good team and a good program. They're not the same. They are part and parcel, but they are not the same. So I don't know. Maybe I'm beating my head against the wall trying to have those discussions in some cases, but I try not to go down that road too far. But yeah, I mean, we know we're in good shape with Carson Beck. He's going to be the guy at quarterback. I expect him to have another big year. I expect him to get to 4,000 yards this year. I expect him to get 230 touchdowns this year. And for people who don't follow the program, those are the kind of things that they just don't seem to process. They think because 19 walked out the door that we're done, or that because Ladd McConkey walked out the door that nobody else can catch the football or get open at wide receiver for Georgia. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. So I expect, again, being healthy, if everybody's healthy, I expect Carson Beck to go out there and light it up for Georgia this year. He is a Heisman candidate for a reason. I think Dylan Bell and Dom Lovett and Arian Smith are all going to have a lot to say about how things go for Carson Beck this year. More than anything, and I didn't even spend any time talking about it tonight, but more than anything, what Georgia has on the offensive line this year coming back, if they are not again, if everybody's healthy, if they are not a finalist for the Joe Moore Award, I know Georgia fans, I know. But if they are not a finalist for that award this year, I just don't even know what they're doing over there at that voting committee. Like, I don't understand it at all, because it is a very real possibility that Georgia's interior offensive line right now is the best that has been at Georgia since Kirby Smart has been here. That's a wow statement. And they're not bad at tackle. I'm just saying they're that good along the interior in terms of depth and quality of depth. So when you put a second-year starting quarterback behind an offensive line like that, and he has talented wide receivers the way Georgia does in the scheme that Georgia runs, it's hard to see how he's not going to have another big, big season. Katie bar the door if one of those running backs decides that it's going to be a big year. Or even if they do it by committee. It doesn't matter that one back doesn't have 800 yards or 1,000 yards. That's not even the point. You could have a 3-headed running back. But if Georgia can get 4 or 5 yards of carry anytime they want to at any point in the game, you better look out. That defense is young, but they're going to grow up, and that offense is going to carry the water for them until they do. And Georgia is going to be the kind of team, if it goes that way, Georgia's going to be the kind of team that you look at and you're like, that is a monster right there. There's no doubt they're talented. It just comes back to how good are they going to be? So sitting here in April, looking at, I don't even care what the schedule is, just looking at the 24 season, you're like, that team could get people's attention. That's the kind of team, not everybody knows Georgia should win 10 games. You're not breaking news if you say that, right? But if they go out and are thrashing people on their way, to winning 10, 11, 12, whatever it turns out to be, then I just think that's what it could be. That's what it could be. And that's exciting if you're a Georgia fan to think about that, to think that you could have a team that's that good. But there are certainly some contenders out there if we're talking about national titles. Now, I'm long on record as saying that there's probably 6 teams, if you really stretch it, maybe 8 that, are in the conversation for a national championship every season. But even among those teams, today, Georgia is looking as good as anybody else you want to talk to me about. And I'm somebody who just this week has been having an ongoing conversation with an Ohio State fan, talking about how today I would put Georgia as the number 1 headed into the season simply because of what they have at quarterback. But if you look at Ohio State and their roster, that is a defense that's going to be better, one would have to think, and they were really good last year. They have a running game that it's at least as good as last year or better. The offensive line appears to be way better than what they had last year. They're going to have playmakers at wide receiver. So what's the question at Ohio State? The quarterback. And that's why I would have, if I have to pick, I'm going to pick Georgia over Ohio State. Because the team as a whole, and I factor depth into that as well, I think Georgia has the edge. But Ohio State should absolutely expect to compete for their conference title, be in the 12-team playoff, and have a shot to win the national championship here in 2024. I mean, you don't have to blink or step back from that statement in any way if you're an Ohio State fan. And along the way, you're probably going to get back a healthy portion of get back on Michigan if I had to bet today. I don't even know where that game's being played. Probably at Ohio State. Doesn't matter. If your quarterback comes through in any kind of way, Michigan's Ohio State should be right there to get right against Michigan and give Ryan Day an opportunity to win a national championship this fall. So, guys, I do appreciate you hanging out with me for a little while. If nobody else has any questions or anything that you want to get into right now, I want to say thank you all for being here with me. I don't want to keep you here a long time because I do appreciate and value your time, and I'm glad you chose to come and sit in with me for just a little while this evening. Again, thanks for hanging in here with us through the technical difficulties. I'm very pleased that I was able to get back up here without too much delay. My machine had to reboot, so, whatever that took, 10 minutes, but it knocked us offline completely. So apologies for that, but there's some things we just can't control. So, if you're not a Bulldog fan, thanks for being here. We hope you feel welcome. Cheer your team on. Best of luck to you. I hope everybody's healthy. If you are a Dog fan, thank you for being here. Enjoy G-Day. Let's get everybody through this thing healthy. Let's see some plays being made by playmakers this Saturday between the hedges. And yeah, man, let's have a good evening. And you can count on hearing from me again next week and every week from now up until the season starts. Y'all take care of yourselves. And let me do it this way. I want to make sure that we get on the right thing because I don't want to jump off on the wrong thing here. So let's just make sure that everybody's safe out there, travel to and from Athens safely, enjoy the game, have a good time, take a bunch of pictures, make a bunch of memories, because that's what it's all about, y'all. Trust me. This year has told me and proven to me that if you have the opportunity to go and enjoy life and do things you love with the people that you love, you need to take advantage of that opportunity. Okay? So get out there, do that. Be safe, everybody. Take care of yourselves. And go Dogs.